You checked their profile again, not because you expected anything new, you knew you wouldn't find anything, but because the not knowing was unbearable. And for a second, looking at a photograph of someone you love, you felt yourself disappear into it. That is not devotion. Sartre had a name for what that was. And it is not flattering. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote the line everyone misquotes. Hell is other people. 3 words lifted from a 1944 play called Huis Clos, No Exit, and handed down through decades as a cynical verdict on human company. A misanthrope's bumper sticker. But Sartre himself said the misreading frustrated him. He was describing something far more specific and far more painful than irritation with strangers on the train. In the play, 3 strangers are locked in a room together after death. No mirrors, no windows, only each other's eyes. And slowly, they realize that the eyes of another person are the only mirror left to them. They cannot see themselves except through how the others look at them. This is not a metaphor for annoying neighbors. It is a diagnosis of something that happens every time you fall in love. Think about the first weeks. Everything you did slightly for them. The way you told a story at dinner, you were watching yourself through their gaze as you told it. What do they think of me right now? You were present in the room, but part of you had already left your own body and taken up residence inside their perception of you. You were experiencing yourself as an object, through their eyes, rather than as the subject of your own life. Sartre called this the fundamental problem of consciousness meeting consciousness. When 2 aware beings encounter each other, each one immediately begins to experience themselves through the other's gaze. He called it le regard, the look. And the look is not neutral. It fixes you. It turns the fluid, open thing that you are into something definite, bounded, named. You become, in that moment, an object in someone else's world. This is why early love feels simultaneously like expansion and like a kind of vertigo. You feel seen, truly seen, you think, and being seen feels like relief after years of invisibility. But to be seen is also to be frozen. They see you as something, and now you have to decide whether to become that thing or to resist it and lose the warmth of the gaze entirely. That is the trap. It does not announce itself. It feels like being loved. Dorothy Tennov, a psychologist who coined the word limerence in 1979, documented hundreds of people in the grip of intense romantic longing. One pattern she found again and again was a particular kind of self-surveillance. People constantly editing themselves in anticipation of how the beloved would perceive them. Not dishonesty, exactly. Something more involuntary than that. A kind of internal audience that never switched off. Sartre would have recognized it immediately, because what limerence describes, and what Sartre maps philosophically, is the same territory. The self destabilized by needing to be perceived. You stop knowing what you actually want, because wanting has become inseparable from wondering what they would think of what you want. You lose the quiet interior room where you used to live, and without it, you become dependent on their gaze, not just for validation, but for the most basic sense that you exist at all. Simone de Beauvoir, Sartre's lifelong companion, wrote about this with a precision he sometimes lacked. She noticed that women especially were trained from childhood to understand themselves primarily through the eyes of others, to experience their own bodies, their intelligence, their ambitions, always filtered through an imagined male appraisal. The gaze was not merely a philosophical condition for her, it was a political architecture. Love, she argued, becomes genuinely free only when you can stand in it without disappearing into it. But here is where Sartre's analysis gets uncomfortable in a different way. It is not only that you lose yourself in the gaze of the person you love, you also, without wanting to, do this to them. The moment you love someone, truly fix your attention on them, desire them, need them, you too become a look. Your love lands on them, and it turns them slightly into an object for you. Not from cruelty, from the unavoidable structure of consciousness trying to reach another consciousness. This is the vertigo at the center of love that almost no one talks about honestly. You want to be seen fully as you really are, free and uncontained. And you also want to see them, to hold them in your mind as something definite and knowable and yours. Both of those wants are real, and they contradict each other completely. Loving someone means asking them to give up a freedom they can never actually give up. Being loved means the same thing as being asked of you. Sartre did not think this meant love was impossible. He was not writing a verdict, however much it reads like one. He was trying to describe what love actually is, underneath the stories we tell about it. And what it actually is, at least in its most common form, is two people each trying to solve an impossible problem: how to be free and how to belong to someone, simultaneously, without one destroying the other. The philosopher Iris Murdoch, writing separately from Sartre, though deeply aware of him, argued that the central task of love was learning to see the other person as they actually are, rather than as a projection of your own needs. She called it unselfing. The moment you stop needing them to reflect you back to yourself, you can actually look at them, really look, and see a separate human being, whole and strange, and not yours. That, she suggested, is where love begins to become something other than captivity. You have probably felt the difference. There are moments in a long love, not the early vertigo, but something that comes after, if you are patient with it, when you look at someone and feel no anxiety about what they see when they look back. You are not performing, and you are not watching yourself perform. You are just there, and so are they. Those moments are quiet. They do not feel like the movies, but they are the closest thing to what both Sartre and Murdoch were circling from opposite directions. The hell Sartre was pointing at is not other people. It is the specific suffering of needing someone's gaze so much that you stop being able to see anything else, including yourself, including them. It is the room with no mirrors and no exit, where consciousness can only locate itself by bouncing off someone else's eyes. You have been in that room. Most people have. The question is not whether you can leave it, love will pull you back, but whether you can learn to notice when you are inside it, not to punish yourself for it, not to perform detachment as a defense, but to remember, in the middle of needing them, that you existed before they looked at you, that you have an interior that belongs only to you, that the person you love is also a subject, unmappable, not fully knowable, not a mirror, but a mind. When you can hold both of those things at once, your own aliveness and theirs, you are no longer in hell. You are somewhere much harder than that. You are in love.